opinions and statements expressed in the following program do not necessarily reflect those of WWDB, its staff, or management.
You are listening to In the Know with David O. Informative, substantive, intelligent talk radio on 860 AM WWDB. And now, your host, Philadelphia Councilman David O.
Good afternoon, and thank you again for joining me here on In the Know with David O. WWDB. 860 AM, 2 to 3 every Tuesday. And we try to bring you information from experts, people who have the experience and knowledge, to share with you things that are important to you. If you remember last week, we were talking to Frank Knuckles Walker, legendary drummer, percussionist with the Roots, now doing things on his own, and right here from Philadelphia. And also Brittany Lewis, Miss Black America 2017, and Rel Dowdell, a writer-director here in Philadelphia, about his new documentary, Where's Daddy? You can see the interview on my YouTube page at In the Know with David O, or you can go to www.wwdbam.com to hear all the other shows that we've done with all of our great guests. This week, we're going to deal with a very interesting topic, and that is how do you overcome challenges in your life where you are, well, you're the underdog. You're weak, and they are strong. You are few, and they are many. Joining us in this discussion are some very serious gentlemen, and one day I'll do one with the ladies, but today I'm looking around at 5 men. And they are dedicated practitioners of the martial arts. Starting with Hank Shin. He is a 9th degree black belt in Hapkido and Taekwondo. He's a Grand Master. He's our most senior gentleman, not quite 80, but as fit can be. And he certainly has interesting perspectives to share with us about why he does it and what he offers those who train with him. And then we have Phil Migliarese. He is 5th degree black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He has traveled to California, Brazil, India, because he's a practitioner of yoga, and to Thailand to train in some Muay Thai. And he owns a number of schools here in Philadelphia. John Disimone, he is a 6th degree black belt in Judo, a 6th degree black belt in Aikido, and a 1st degree black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, originally from Louisiana. He makes Philadelphia his home, and he has his martial arts school as well. And we have Brian Rago, who has considerable experience in Kung Fu and traditional Jiu-Jitsu, but then found his home in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and he has the Gracie Philly Academy. I should say that Phil has Balance Academy. John Disimone has Maxercise Academy. And Hank Shin, well, he doesn't have an academy. What he does is he travels to different schools and does master classes. So, that's where you'll find him. And I'll talk about his association shortly. And then we have David Medina. It's actually Dr. David Medina. He's got a PhD. He's a best-selling author. And he's a graduate with honors from the Wharton School. You would think he'd be on Wall Street, but he has the Medina Kenpo Karate School in Springfield, Delaware County, Pennsylvania. And he is an 8th degree black belt in Kenpo Karate. And so let me just say that we are not going to have a big fight in this studio. We're going to talk about the history, the strategy, the philosophy, and the techniques and personal commitment of each one of these gentlemen and what it means to you. So let me first start by welcoming Hank Shin to the show. How are you doing?
I'm fine.
Okay, you're coming across loud and clear. Now, You are someone who has the most experience, just given your age and how long you have been doing it. And people would be surprised because at your age, you're very physically fit, and you're very upright and calm in your demeanor. And you enjoy teaching the martial arts. And especially at this point in time, you're teaching a lot of masters and grandmasters. You're the senior grandmaster. What is Hapkido?
Hapkido is a little different than Taekwondo. Taekwondo is seems like a karate.
Yes, like
or
kicking,
Chinese
punching.
Wushu,
Yes.
But Hapkido is more similar to Japanese Aikido.
Like Aikido.
Aikido. And using more circles, flooring, harmonize with the enemy movement. So a little flexible,
Yes.
more smooth work. But
Okay.
technique is breaking joint.
Breaking joints. He's
throwing,
laughing. He's laughing.
Kicking, so everything.
Kicking
so,
and punching, right?
pretty interesting stuff. I do Taekwondo, but I like more Hapkido. I'm going crazy about Hapkido now. I've been doing that since 65.
Right. Okay.
Still doing. Taekwondo, my student teaching there. So
Right. Now,
I just go there once in a
I
while.
heard a story. I don't know if you could confirm this or not, that basically there was a Korean boy who was kind of adopted by a Japanese businessman, brought to Japan, where he was so naughty that they sent him to the monastery, and he learned traditional Japanese jiu-jitsu at the monastery with the founder of Aikido, the Japanese Aikido, and this boy came back to Korea, and he basically did Aikido, and later they incorporated Taekyon, or the original form of Taekwondo, and it became Shinmu Hapkido, which is the traditional Korean kicking and punching. Okay, Grandmaster Shin, you get an F for not knowing the history.
You know, so many histories made by somebody
Yeah,
else.
we don't know if they're true or not, I guess is what
actually, quickly, the oldest guy who started Hapkido come from Japan. He grew up there, so he learned from a Japanese guy. And he wasn't Hapkido. He learned something else, Yawara or Yukozur. So he come to Korea, he started teaching Yawara or Hapkido. So Hapkido made the Japanese pronounce as Aikido. We pronounce Hapkido with Chinese character. So that person named Choi Yong-sul.
Okay.
So not Chi Han-jae. Chi Han-jae, one of his students. He's my student, Chi Han-jae.
Okay.
My instructor, I'm sorry.
Yes, your instructor. So let me do this. Let me jump over to John Disimone, because the interesting thing about this is, although Taekwondo is a combination of the original Korean martial arts, they put them all together at one point in time, and there was some argument about Hapkido because it wasn't really Korean, it was Japanese. That's the history I got. Grandmaster Shin shaking his head, so that may not be accurate. That's what I heard. But John, you are trained and a black belt in judo, aikido, and now in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which actually all originated in Japan. What do you think about this historical basis of these martial arts?
Well, as far as the Hapkido is concerned, I don't really know much about the origin at all, to be quite honest. I know that our Aikido system has a very strong base in Japan, obviously, where it originated from, and also a little bit of a connection to judo as well. Mm-hmm. So Aikido and judo kind of work together in a lot of aspects, and from the founders, the Tomiki. Sensei Tomiki was a judo practitioner first, learned from Jigoro Kano, and then kind of started his own style of Aikido. But as far as the Hapkido, what I was always under the impression is that Hapkido was Taekwondo and Aikido kind of mixed together. How they became together, I'm not quite sure.
Right. Could you tell our listeners where did judo come from, and what is the difference between judo and Aikido?
Well,
Different. It's different.
What's that?
just a different.
Yeah, there's a big difference between them. The similarities, I think, would be the attacking on the move. Some of the principles are very similar, but Aikido is a very self-defense based martial art. I know they all are, but with Aikido, none of it can really transpire without a very committed attack. And Judo, I would say, although is a martial art, is considered more of a sport. One of the most popular sports in the world, actually,
Right.
where there's less joint manipulations, but not the same idea. More a throwing-based art with the ground fighting, much like Jiu-Jitsu. So those are the big differences. They share some philosophies, but as far as technique, there's some big differences between the two.
I read once that there's two types of philosophies in martial arts, and martial arts being the military arts. That one is that if someone strikes at you, when you block them, you try to break their arm. When you strike them, you try to crush whatever you hit. And then there's another philosophy that basically your attacker is not in harmony. He's not himself. He's out of harmony with the universe, and you don't want to hurt him. You want to use his energy against him and kind of just somewhat restrain him till his self comes back. Does that ring a bell, or are we going too much into television?
No. I mean, actually, I would think with Aikido especially, it is definitely that. There's actually a kind of saying in Aikido where it's the saving of your enemy. You're kind of protecting your enemy. You're using their energy, their commitment to subdue them, but not necessarily to hurt them. Potentially, you could hurt them, but the idea is a little more, like you're saying, a little more aggressively passive, if that makes sense. Like we're not looking to hurt anybody, but to control them and just try to diffuse the situation without having to break them just because they attacked you.
What about the fact that the person who's attacking you is bigger, stronger, more athletic?
Well, like I think most of the martial arts, you're always trying to use the leverage, trying to use your technique. I do believe that in the beginning of a martial arts person's journey, strength will overcome technique in the beginning, but over time, technique will eventually prevail over somebody who's bigger and stronger. And with Aikido, the idea of that committed attack, that point of no return, kind of really lends itself to the idea where a weaker and smaller person could defend themselves, use their off balance, and things like that.
So Brian, you began with maybe up to like 3 years of kung fu training, and then you began studying, I believe, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Is that right, or generally about correct?
That's correct. It started when I was in college, and I was just looking for a way to work out, and I always loved the combat sports and martial arts, so kung fu always seemed cool. You saw it in the movies. If you grew up anytime in the 80s, 90s, you saw a lot of ninja movies and such.
Sure.
So I thought I'd try it out. I went into Chinatown, found the most traditional looking place, and tried to...
Here in Philadelphia?
Yes, here in Philadelphia on Cherry Street.
Wow, okay. And how was that experience for you? Did you like that? What did you gain from that?
Well, certainly a toughness, good conditioning, conditioning your hands as well as your spirit. The idea was to create a meditative exercise. It was a very hard style, and a lot of horse dancing and such. So it took a lot of discipline to work through. In terms of the fighting, I'd say it wasn't the most direct and practical approach to fighting.
So how did you discover jiu-jitsu?
Well, I think like most other people, I saw the UFC.
Okay.
At some point, I watched one of the fights and I tried to rationalize.
Did you see Phil? Did you look over?
I did not see Phil
on television,
but I didn't know to look for him either.
Okay.
I saw Hoist Gracie choke unconscious a number of people, and including a kung fu guy. And I thought his horse dance just isn't good enough. Otherwise, why would he go to the ground? Then I realized that it's a little different from what you see in the movies. You don't just root yourself. It's a very, very complex discipline of leverages.
And so now we were basically talking to people who fight on their feet when we're talking about Taekwondo, Hapkido even. And the sport of jiu-jitsu, judo, you're starting on your feet. You do end up on the ground. But in Kung Fu, at least as you were learning it, you know, I know there's ground fighting in Kung Fu, but when you did the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, it was now all ground fighting when you began to train.
Oh, that's correct. And I was looking forward to it. I discovered it a little bit because once the UFC came out, all jiu-jitsu styles claimed to be related suddenly.
Right.
And the traditional styles, they would try to do a sort of ground fighting. And I'm sure they mimicked a lot of newaza from judo. But when I went into my first legitimate Brazilian jiu-jitsu school, you quickly learn the difference. And you realize that you were training with very serious masters of the discipline of ground fighting, not just of a generic form of grappling.
What is, in your opinion, the distinction between grappling and serious ground fighting?
Well, grappling is a more generic term that
Wrestling,
applies to
that type of thing.
Right. Well, Aikido is a form of grappling anytime you're engaged with another person in close combat where it's not relying on strikes. But it's the ground game that distinguishes jiu-jitsu. Being able to fight off of your back and it being both a defensive and offensive position.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're talking about someone who is on the ground, lying on their back, engaged in a fight. From that position, there are techniques and you train to be able to disengage or disarm, people that are attacking you while you're on your back.
Right, the guard. They call it the guard. We call it the guard. Mm-hmm. And in wrestling, you turn to your stomach to avoid a pin. You do something similar in judo. But jiu-jitsu, the fight is just beginning, and we expect to be on our back because we always assume a bigger, stronger, faster opponent that, even if we have good takedowns, could take us to the ground. And that's where our fight begins.
Phil, you have trained in Brazil, in California, and as you talk or you listen to this conversation, what are the principles that come to your mind in terms of difference between the ability to fight on your feet and the ability to fight off your back or on the ground?
Well, I think they're all, obviously for like street application, all important. Especially the stand-up part that quite often is forgotten in jiu-jitsu. So it's often seen as just a ground fighting sort of system. But there's, as many of you know in this room, a full Gracie stand-up, curriculum for self-defense. So that does include striking and throws and ways of actually getting yourself away from the situation and just running. So
Right.
And then the ground application is, a two-parter really too. Actually, maybe three. So you have your street application, do what you need to do in the street, and then the sport aspect where I think it's endless. The amount of techniques that you can see because there is no striking in that particular phase of jiu-jitsu. And then you have this like super sport fighting in UFC. So there's things that are, it's not street because there are a lot of jiu-jitsu techniques from your back that could be used in a real situation are actually illegal.
Okay.
I mean, they take it away to create a more sportive aspect instead of like kicking someone in the face and headbutting them, and I think it causes it to be less entertainment because it gets more bloody.
Right. Now, in addition to which, you have incorporated yoga and yoga for fighters into your regimen and into your teaching. Mm-hmm. How does that apply to what you're trying to do and what you're trying to teach your students?
Well, a lot of our students, the reason why the yoga for fighters came about is people were asking me about yoga sometimes more than jiu-jitsu moves. So like, how do I get involved? How do I do it? So I just created a little product that was like really easy to follow and just kind of like the first step in your yoga journey if you come from martial arts, because sometimes it could be a little difficult just to walk in a yoga room or a yoga class being a guy or thinking you're going to be really terrible at it.
I'm going to interrupt
Yeah.
you because for our listeners, I'm going to imagine they didn't just walk up and say, "Hey, I'm interested in yoga."
Yeah.
I'm going to imagine that you gave him a beating and they said, "My goodness, what are you doing?" And he's like, "Yoga."
I mean, sometimes, man, I thank God I have like a little bit of extra flexibility because it gets me out of situations when I'm grappling now with much younger people. So, could give you an edge, but it's the jiu-jitsu technique that should give you the edge, not physicality.
And what did you learn in Thailand when you were there?
I learned Muay Thai. So along with jiu-jitsu, I've always done Muay Thai, but jiu-jitsu, I always tell people I fell in love with jiu-jitsu and I kind of like Muay Thai. So that's how I kept it for 20-something years. And then I went to Thailand. I was going to test for what's called a crew level, so it's an instructor. So I went there to study and train. I went there with my girlfriend and traveled, so we went to different cities. One particular instructor I wanted to train with, so I spent a good month with him. Came back, and my instructor here wanted to test to become an instructor, and then that was about 3 weeks before my daughter was born.
Oh,
my instructor calls me and said, "You have to test now or never." He said, "After this baby is born, you're not going to get a chance." And so I tested in Muay Thai, something, pretty much I've been studying with him for a long time. And he would ask me, ready to test? I was like, no, not ready. And it happened for like 10, 15 years. So he said, no, you have to now.
And for our listeners, Muay Thai is a kickboxing style that originates from Thailand, and it's a very sophisticated 8-limb system that they use there and has been part of their military and is very successful in places like the UFC. It's pretty much a standard, along with Jiu-Jitsu and Judo, if you're going to be a UFC fighter, to have some background in Muay Thai.
Yeah, it's definitely true.
Okay, and so let me ask David Medina, your style is Kenpo karate.
That is correct. I would just like to say, Dave, I'm really happy that you decided to have the show at 2 o'clock, because this room could either be the most dangerous room in the entire world right before lunch, but everybody here looks pretty happy. So 2 o'clock is good, because the amount of talent in this room is great. It's amazing.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, so I do a style called Kempo, which is a great art. It's mainly a stand-up, mainly striking, and it's street self-defense against one or multiple attackers. And I've had a lot of fun with it over the years, and I've had a lot of great students and great instructors come up, and I'm very proud of all of them. And it's really a fun thing to do.
What is the essence of Kenpo, and what is the difference between Kenpo with an N and Kempo with an M? Sure.
The N in Kenpo is more of an Americanized version. The M is more of a Japanese and Hawaiian version. Grandmaster Ed Parker came over in the 1950s, and he spread the Kenpo across the United States, and I am a direct beneficiary of that, along with I trained with my instructor named Grandmaster Frank Trejo out of California. He's just an amazing guy, excellent 19-time world champion, and he has taught me not only how to perfect my art, but also how to work with any student, but more particularly, we worked on a project together on how to teach students with special needs, and it's been an extremely satisfying journey for me and my instructors. It's been a great ride. So,
what would you say the difference is between Kenpo karate and Taekwondo?
There's a lot of similarities. So you could generalize everything, and you could say everybody in this room are throwing punches. We're all throwing punches. Then you can get really specific and say, okay, well, the way Phil throws a punch may be different from the way Hank throws a punch, maybe different from the way I throw a punch, because we're all different size bodies, and we all have different techniques, and we each have gotten our results based on what we know and what we do and what we've been taught. So I think that the differences are, first of all, in the style, but then secondly, it really comes down to the practitioner, because you could have the same art, but each practitioner and each art will be different.
I read once, listen to me, I always start with I read once. So I read once, and I've kind of heard, and there's Grandmaster Shin ready to shake his head no, but I've heard that the Japanese style of striking and kicking emphasizes a vertical stance, kind of like standing up straight, and that the Korean style, for example, is a straight line between your heel and your shoulder, and so they end up sometimes in a more horizontal when they kick. Would you up the first positive nod from Grandmaster Hank Shin? Thank you.
A lot of stuff, yeah.
So what is the difference? I would assume that when you want to stay vertically upright, that you emphasize kind of staying, straight up, maybe for mobility, maybe for balance. But what do you think the difference is between the desire to be horizontal or vertical?
I think a lot of it depends on where you're at, what you're doing, what the circumstances are, what you can pull off really well, and what you're more comfortable with. Some people can do both. Some people can stand straight up and throw a great kick, great punch. Some people need to lean back a little bit, maybe because their core is not as strong, so they're better off leaning back a little bit. So I think it could be done both ways, but you are sacrificing certain things. You're gaining distance, a little bit of distance by leaning back. You're a little bit more stable standing up because then it depends on the distance of your feet. So there's all these little nuances that you can play with as a practitioner in your dojo and see what kind of results you get, which is quite honestly half the fun of the entire thing.
Okay, well, listen, now that we've kind of laid out some of that, we're going to get into some additional materials, more of the inner person, the inner spirit, and how it helps you and your students when we come back from this commercial break.
You are listening to In the Know with David O. Informative, substantive, intelligent talk radio on 860 AM WWDB.
If you've suffered an injury from a motor vehicle crash, trip and fall, construction, or work-related accident, contact the Padova firm to speak with John Padova himself. You've heard the name. That's because for over 25 years, John has been winning for his clients. John is dedicated to ensuring his clients are fully compensated. Call 215-893-0700. That's 215-893-0700. Don't suffer more than you have to. Call John Padova today. Help is on the way.
Here at Sonny's Famous Cheesesteaks, we have the utmost respect for the founding fathers of our fair city's most celebrated sandwich. But we also understand the inevitability of time marching on. So come to Sonny's in Old City for a revolutionary take on the classic. And try the cheesesteak that Alan Richman of GQ magazine named the best in Philadelphia. And declare your inalienable right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of cheesiness. Sonny's Famous Steaks, 228 Market.
My friends, this is Joe Kraus. You've heard me on Philadelphia radio now for over 20 years, and you know I don't often endorse products or people unless they are real game changers. I want to tell you about Weinerman Pain and Wellness, located in Center City, Philadelphia. And at the end of this short personal endorsement, I want you to consider Weinerman Pain and Wellness. If you are recovering from an injury, if you or a family member has been diagnosed with a disorder that has stopped you in your tracks, or if you're like me, determined to learn about wellness while getting yourself prepared to stay healthy so you can enjoy the blessings of your family. Remember the name of this warm and caring location, Weinerman Pain and Wellness. Why should you consider Weinerman Pain and Wellness? Because they are who you expect them to be. Weinerman Pain and Wellness on the web at weinermanpainandwellness.com.
Weinerman Pain and Wellness, located at 100 South Broad Street, just south of City Hall. Call Weinerman Pain and Wellness at 215-988-9503. That's 215-988-9503. Call today. Today's broadcast is brought to you by the Philly Labor RX Injured Workers Pharmacy Network, featuring PPC Pharmacy, First Choice Pharmacy, and Precision Scripts, providing injured workers with premium products and services from the point of injury through the entire healing process. The Philly Labor RX Pharmacy Network cares about injured workers.
Every day, the men and women of the United States Marine Corps demonstrate their commitment to defend the American way of life. Since 1775, we have served our nation as a force in readiness. From combat operations to humanitarian assistance in every corner of the world. No matter where the mission takes us today or wherever our country needs us tomorrow, we always remember the land we call home. As Marines, we take a stand for each other, for our nation, for us all, the few, the proud, the Marines.
All right, and we are back. Listen, I mean, we were talking about these different styles and different types of martial arts, what they emphasize. There is something common about all of them, but I'm going to ask each one of our guests to just kind of identify, in a way, as a story that may kind of represent who they are, what they try to teach, and just to let us know what is the secret sauce, what is the particular thing about what they do, whether it's a combination of things or one particular art, traditional or fusion, that they offer the people who study with them. And I'll start with you, David Medina.
Yeah. So, okay, I have a school out in Springfield, Pennsylvania, and I really love teaching kids that are have sensory differences, Asperger's, that are part of the autism community. And what's great about that is that early on, I had one of the moms in my studio approach me, and she asked me if we could have a class for her son, Jimmy. And I said, yeah, let's try it out. So we tried it out, and one of our first students, his name was AJ. And we have this tradition where everybody stands in a line in the back of the classroom, and whoever stands in the front, we call out to them and we say, you know, for example, John, start the lineup, and then they'll say, yes, sir, yes, ma'am, depending on who's in the front. Well, AJ made his way up there, and he was not very verbal, and his mother was in the lobby, and she got really nervous, and one of our instructors, Miss Susie, called out and said, all right, AJ, start the lineup. Meanwhile, his mom was very nervous because he's not that verbal. Well, after training for a little while, he just looked up and just literally screamed out, yes, ma'am. And the second he did that, there was not a dry eye in the house. It was absolutely amazing. Mm-hmm. And our program, what we do is we take into account some of the struggles that these kids have. It's a little bit more emotionally supportive. We have great instructors that we all work with. And if you're interested in any type of those classes, I do have a website. It's medinakenpo.com with an N.
Right, medinakenpo.com.
Yes, and then they can come in. They can come in for a free class, and then we actually would like them to do that first, just so that we can make sure that it is a good match and everything is good before they do decide to sign up.
Let me ask you this direct question for you. I mean, just for you. Why is Kempo the best martial art for you?
I think that it has a lot of flexibility. I think that it has a plethora of techniques to dive into. I think that it takes the practitioner into account. We don't demand anything that you can't do. So the way I teach it and the way my instructor also teaches it is we take the individual from wherever they're at and we move them up. So it doesn't matter that you have any type of physical challenges or any type of emotional challenges. If you come in, if you're interested in training, we will train you. And the results that we have gotten have been nothing short of incredible. We have parents that are training with us. We have, adults from the MR that are also training. So, yeah.
All right, fantastic. And John Disimone, head instructor at Maxercise in Philadelphia. Could you share with us kind of like a representative memory or story?
Well, my father was a martial artist. Myself and my three sisters, we grew up doing martial arts. We had a dojo in our basement. So it's been part of my life forever. Not necessarily jiu-jitsu, but my father was a Taekwondo guy first. I think a lot of people started in Taekwondo. And then he was a hardcore Kenpo practitioner for most of his life. And then he got into Aikido and things like that as he got a little older. But so we always had that part of our regimen every day, something that we had to do.
Right. Did you like it, by the way?
I did.
Okay.
Yeah, I did very much. There was the one thing that we never really butted heads on too much.
That's good to hear.
At least not that I can remember. I think that was something that always worked well, and it worked well with my siblings too.
Okay.
Gave us kind of an outlet, and we all have a very, very good relationship today. I think because of that.
Right.
And I try to think about that when with our program and the way we kind of handle people when they walk in. I think walking in to a martial arts school, especially. A combat kind of art. They all are, but some people will see the UFC and they get this kind of different idea of what jiu-jitsu might be.
Some people might not even walk in, just thinking about, oh my goodness, I don't want to walk into that.
I think it's a very scary experience for a lot of people. That first step is the hardest step. So we try to make people feel very, very welcome. Very safe. We practice really hard of being very friendly and welcoming to people when they come in. Trying to remember what that feeling is like. We talk about it a lot in the classes. Don't forget what that first day was like when you walked in. And I feel like it's a personal obligation to when somebody walks into my school to keep them there, to know that they're going to be safe, and to give them the best experience and maybe hopefully change their life.
Let me ask you this. I mean, with your background in Aikido, with Judo, do you do something a little different with your school than you think? I'm not saying that you think that other schools may not be doing?
I wouldn't think so. I think I think for the most part, especially in the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu community, I think we all probably follow pretty much the same kind of formula. We have a self-defense aspect, which is usually first. We incorporate a little bit of the sport aspect to it. I enjoy competition. I think it's very good for people, win or lose. I always feel like you're better for having done it, facing those fears. And I would also say that in jiu-jitsu, I've never seen a learning curve as fast. So people get to see results very, very quickly, as long as they, give it a couple times a week in the beginning. Just keep coming to class and not get injured. Then they get to see the results, which kind of, it's nice to see when that switch kind of flips with people. That spark they get, they get their first submission.
Right.
Something just kind of changes in them, and jiu-jitsu, martial arts will change your life, but I've never seen jiu-jitsu I've never seen anything else change people's lives like jiu-jitsu, in my opinion.
And where is your school, and how do people find out about your school?
Our website's phillywarrior.com. It's spelled just the way it sounds. And we're at 8th and Arch. The specific address is on. There's a little side street, kind of hard to find, but if you go to the website, you'll find us.
Okay, perfect. And Phil, any story comes to mind? Because a couple stories come to my mind, but why don't you tell your story about your experience or your perspective?
I have actually a similar story as John. Growing up around combat. My dad boxed, my grandfather boxed, my great-grandfather boxed. Actually, back then, they called it like a gentleman's boxing because they did it on the street and they did it with their hands like slightly wrapped. So it was all in America. And then, I grew up like that. Dad swinging at me, put my hands up, it was a very like playful thing, but it was always around the house. And then one day I was introduced to jiu-jitsu, and I was able to, I swear within a week, I took down one of my buddies who was about 100 times better than I was in boxing.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, this stuff works.
Right. And how did you get introduced to it in the first place?
We were friends, Steve Maxwell.
Yes.
My mom worked for him as an aerobics instructor, and I've known him since I was a little kid, like 2 or 3 years old. And that was my first class, like the first time I actually like dove in. I actually got a tape when I was, this must be in the 80s. The in-action tapes, you remember those? So I got one, we mailed away for it, got it, and then started mimicking what we were seeing on there. And then by the time I got in there, I actually like knew stuff,
Ah, okay.
And he was just telling us like, come on in, and then we finally ran in there. And I say we, my brother and I.
Your brother Ricky.
Ricardo, yeah.
Ricardo, yes. Who, by the way, is in business with you and teaches with you, right?
He's my partner, yeah.
Yeah, he's also with Balance Academy. And how's that, kind of doing this with your brother?
It's good. Quite honestly, the word balance, he does things that I don't like doing, and I do things he doesn't like doing in the business side of it. So it actually works out perfectly. And then even on the teaching end, and he likes teaching during the day. I like teaching at night. It just works out.
What is the signature of Balance Academy? What is it that the Migliarese brothers try to do?
I don't know, presentation of what we do. And just kind of like broke it down over the years, almost like a college course presentation, like the 101 class, 102. kind of breaking it down. These guys do the same thing, you know, like a beginner class, intermediate class. And then over the past like 8 years, Muay Thai has become more important to us, and having it in a formal, traditional way, also non-traditional for proper presentation to new people. And we just did that. It took about 8-9 years to really do that, to have like standardized curriculum and having different ranks of instructors at the school, and actually people compete. So, you know, we're doing 2 major martial arts, and then as a side program, we have the Yoga for Fighters program. So,
right.
And that's just, like I said, it's the sequence that I put together, and then, you know, people go through 8 to 12 weeks of it, so they can do it on their own at home or on the mat or something.
Okay, and how do people get in touch with you and with your
the website? It's balancephilly.com, and then that has really all the information you can handle. And there's also an app on the App Store if you look under like Balance MMA. There's a lot of info there too.
Okay, and where are your schools located?
Our headquarters is in Fishtown. We have our original location in Center City, one in Northeast, and then one in South Philly.
Okay.
That's a little pro center right now, but it's slowly growing.
Okay. And Brian, what about your experience that is representative of your kind of like being in the martial arts and teaching?
Well, I mean, there are many experiences. I'm going to steal a story from Steve Maxwell, since Phil brought him up, since he was one of my first instructors, and where I learned my early Gracie self-defense repertoire. He said he had a student who came in very frustrated. He's a little guy, 130 pounds, and he said, all the stuff you were showing me in the guard, I got into a fight with my neighbor. He picked on me. He was a big biker and 220 pounds, much bigger and stronger than I am. And he took me down and was trying to hit me. And Steve said, well, what did you do? He said, well, I tried to sit up and do a kimura, which is a kind of joint lock, and I tried to do an arm lock. I tried to sweep him, and I couldn't do any of the stuff that I was doing in class. And he said, well, what happened? He says, well, eventually he got tired, he gave up, and I got up and I went home. He says, well, what are you complaining about? You fought a guy who was almost 100 pounds bigger than you were, a very tough guy, and you walked away without any serious injury. And it just impressed upon me, first of all, the real point of self-defense, which is it's not fighting, it's self-defense, it's being safe, as Phil referenced earlier. It's not just about fighting on the ground or fighting with your fists, it's about not getting injured when you're outnumbered or outmatched, or someone's much bigger or stronger. And that is the essence of self-defense that you want to apply in all areas, whether it's sportive or mixed martial arts or self-defense. You're always looking for the easy fight, the many against the few, 2 arms against 1, or use your leverage in a position where you have a better leverage than your opponent. Use gravity when there's the opportunity. And of course, retreat when it's sensible. And it's something that we can do and practice every day, full force or very relaxed and flowing. It's a great workout, and it's a great lifestyle. Many great people train in it. You have a chance to help people, as John mentioned earlier, and learn something practical at the same time. So it's hard really to single in on any one element that appeals.
Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, Gracie Philly, where is that located?
We're at 1231 Bainbridge Street, and our website is phlbjj.com. So anybody wants to come and check it out, please do.
All right, pretty good. And Hank Shin, do you have a story to share with us? And I was going to say, how do people get in touch with you? You're all over the place, but yeah. So could you tell us something about what you think represents who you are and what you try to do in martial arts?
Okay. It's a long, long time ago. Very few martial artists. So if somebody I know Tang Judo, and we get tobok in here, walking street, we get scared. So there are very few people. So someday I want to do that. I want to have a strong man, physically, mentally. So I joined the school. They teach hard work, and rules. You have to be quiet at school, no talk, no laughing. Very tough rules. So grow up there. So we training for your spirit, mental, strong. So you have to be really follow rules. So grow up there, and somehow I like it. Man have to be a strong man, mentally, physically too. So I continue to do that. Then I have a chance to teach children. Somehow they start teaching at the school. So I continue to do Taekwondo and Hapkido. I just did it. But I saw many different styles keep coming, mixing. Chinese Kung Fu, Bruce Lee movie, all kind of stuff. People getting confused, which one is good? But my judgment is all good, all good. I cannot say which one is better or loser. But when I went to Mexico, the sports authority person speaking English a little bit asking me, what is Taekwondo? Big question. So they have 4 different kind of martial art who can consider martial art. For warfare, hand-to-hand combat, that's a real killing technique. Krav Maga, Israel, that's for fight, war fight, hand-to combat, a Russian style too. Then other one is competition, like a sports, a tournament, win or lose. Okay, so original school not doing anything like that, which is teaching mental, spiritual, health, mental strong, physically strong, and develop a good character. That's the main goal to do. So
let me ask you this. You don't actually have a school, but you nowadays, to my knowledge, but you are invited and you go teach at other schools. How do people get in touch with you if they want you to come by and do a seminar or teach at their school?
I start follow with the Grandmaster Chi, with the Africa, Mauritania, it's near the Morocco. So that's the first seminar.
I'm going to correct my question. My question is, how do people reach you? Is there a phone number, a website, email?
No, I'm not doing that much.
No? Okay.
They talk.
You could get in touch with In the Know with David O, and I'll reach out if you want to come by and do a seminar or any of those type of things.
I'm going to give you a business card.
Oh, okay, I got a business card. But let me say that you can send an email to Shinkimudo1, which is actually SHINKIMUDOWON @yahoo.com. And if you want more, I'll put it on my show's information. But that is, you could also just Google, Hank Shin Grandmaster Hapkido. Let me just kind of share a story, kind of related to this. A lot of people know I got stabbed in front of my house. And some people said to me, well, why did you get stabbed, first of all? Second of all, why didn't you just, kick his behind? And I think very similar, as I've gotten older, I've also kind of thought differently myself. And I think the key thing is that there was a guy who stabbed me, and he tried to stab me a few more times for about 8 minutes. And what I really thought about was, can I just step away from him, and can I just keep a distance from him? Can I just manage this distance so that at the end of this, I hope I'm okay and he's okay, and we'll both of us just walk away okay. Now, if I had fallen down or something, that might be a different story, but being on my feet, just trying to keep a distance, just trying to manage the distance when he lunged in, moving back, keeping calm, being thoughtful, looking at him, telling him to calm down, and just maintaining my breath and not sure how injured I was. I say that's self-defense training. And it's self-preservation that I was comfortable enough to not pick up a weapon. I was comfortable enough to say, hey, listen, I got this bottle of wine in this bag. I am not going to break it on the street and stab him in the face because I think I'm fine. And I don't want to hurt him. I hope he doesn't hurt me. I think I can just move away from him. And anyway, it's like exiting the aircraft. Once you step out the airplane, you can't get back in. Once I didn't take the bottle, as a weapon, I was done. I had no more bottle. And fortunately, it worked out for his good and for my good. And I'm so thankful that, I didn't get any more hurt. But I'm especially thankful he didn't get hurt. And I really attribute that, in part to, I will say, religious perspectives that have really influenced me as I've gotten older, but also the fact that, listen, I'm an older guy now. If I hadn't been training, I probably would be out of breath and run over. And listen, one of the things you talk about skill, I was going to outrun this guy, so there was no running away. He would have caught me pretty quick. So just kind of staying face to face, managing the distance, knowing not to try to disarm him, not to try to kick him, not to get stabbed when I try to take him down. None of those things. I was trained enough and knowledgeable enough to just kind of maintain distance, keep calm. And at the end of the day, the best thing happened. He's okay. I'm okay. Nothing else bad happened to me. So when we come back, we're going to talk with our guests some more. And so stay tuned.
You are listening to In the Know with David O. Informative, substantive, intelligent talk radio on 860 AM WWDB.
If you've suffered an injury from a motor vehicle crash, trip and fall, construction, or work-related accident, contact the Padova firm to speak with John Padova himself. You've heard the name. That's because for over 25 years, John has been winning for his clients. John is dedicated to ensuring his clients are fully compensated. Call 215-893-0700. That's 215-893-0700. Don't suffer more than you have to. Call John Padova today. Help is on the way.
My friends, this is Joe Krause. You've heard me on Philadelphia radio now for over 20 years, and I don't often endorse products or people unless they are real game changers. I want to tell you about Weinerman Pain and Wellness, located in Center City, Philadelphia. And at the end of this short personal endorsement, I want you to consider Weinerman Pain and Wellness. If you are recovering from an injury, if you or a family member has been diagnosed with a disorder that has stopped you in your tracks, or if you're like me, determined to learn about wellness while getting yourself prepared to stay healthy so you can enjoy the blessings of your family. Remember the name of this warm and caring location, Weinerman Pain and Wellness. Why should you consider Weinerman Pain and Wellness? Because they are who you expect them to be. Weinerman Pain and Wellness on the web at WeinermanPainandWellness.com.
Weinerman Pain and Wellness, located at 100 South Broad Street, just south of City Hall. Call Weinerman Pain and Wellness at 215-988-9503. That's 215-988-9503. Call today. Today's broadcast is brought to you by the Philly Labor RX Injured Workers Pharmacy Network, featuring PPC Pharmacy, First Choice Pharmacy, and Precision Scripts, providing injured workers with premium products and services from the point of injury through the entire healing process. The Philly Labor RX Pharmacy Network cares about injured workers.
Do you let other people order for you at a restaurant?
He'll have the saumon lyonnaise.
No, I won't. Or pick the movie you're going to see? She'd like a ticket to Attack on Rage Mountain.
Really?
Yeah, come on. So why would you let others make all the important decisions about how your life is going to be when you get older? I mean, is it okay with you if your kids decide where you're going to live? My kids? Are you out?
Are you kidding?
Or perfect strangers choose who will be taking care of you?
Not gonna happen.
No, Better visit longtermcare.gov, the trusted information site that helps helps you find your own path forward without selling you anything. It takes you step by step through everything you need to consider about aging and all your options. Longtermcare.gov. Stay in charge by planning now or pay later.
How about a mohawk?
How about a mohawk? How about I put my foot right... Oh, hi, honey.
Are you thinking about getting your GED diploma? Well, here at the GED Pep Talk Center, we've got a number of pep talks that can motivate you.
Sometimes things don't always turn out the way you want them to.
You know that feeling? People look at you and don't believe in you.
You want some gentle encouragement.
Then you're on your way to your GED diploma and a better life.
But I know they're probably just a little bit nervous. You can find it in yourself to take that first step.
You can improve your future. You can do this. I know you can.
You need to start pushing yourself.
Now get your game face on and take the first step towards a better life. Hurry up! Don't make me repeat myself.
Whatever level of motivation you need to get your GED diploma, we've got a pep talk that's right for you. Call 1-877-38-YOUR-GED or visit yourged.org for your pep talk and find free GED classes in your area. GED is a registered trademark of the American Council on Education. Brought to you by Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
2 minutes left. Let's start with Ryan. All right, we are back. Listen, in the last couple of minutes, I'm giving a tough task to my guests. What I'm going to ask them to do is just touch on something that they think is important that we haven't touched on yet, something that would be important for you to know. And I'll start with Brian Rago.
Well, it's very hard to teach self-defense over the radio, but going back to your story, one of the first things that we do teach is not a joint lock, it's not a strike or a kick or guard or anything. It's managing the distance and using range. It is the single most important element outside of awareness to begin your martial arts training, and I'll just leave it with that.
All right, and Phil Migliarese.
All right, it's one piece of self-defense advice that I recommend always, every class. It's called the Nike defense. So get a good pair of shoes, run if you need to, because some situations there's no martial art that'll help. So if you have that intuition that something's going bad, trust your gut, get out of there.
All right, John Disimone.
Well, I would like to just maybe tell everybody, if you've been considering martial arts and just been a little too afraid or not sure if it would fit into your life, it's something definitely that everybody should try. I know we haven't talked about any of the women and women's self-defense, but I think that's a very big issue nowadays and something very important for women to look into. And a grappling style is something probably a little more realistic, as most women don't get into street fights. I know it's Philadelphia, some women do, but I would say for the most part they don't. They're already in a compromised position on a date, things go wrong, they get pulled, they get grabbed, and that's where jiu-jitsu and things like that will really prevail.
All right, David.
I'd just like to echo what my good friend John said over here. I think anybody can do martial arts, and if anybody has any questions, you can definitely get in touch with me. Like I said, we have a lot of students, young, old, men, women, special needs. Martial arts has incredibly affected my life, and I know that it can affect yours. So.
All right, for Hank Shin, I'll say reach me. We'll get in touch with him because we have got to go. I'll see you next Tuesday.
You've been listening to In the Know with David O. on 860 AM WWDB. Tune in again next Tuesday at 2 p.m. for more informative, substantive, intelligent talk radio with Philadelphia Councilman David O. David O. David O. David O. David O. David O. David O.